let's head to the phones out to our good friend down in Austin, Texas with the Texas Tribune. It's Patrick Svitek. Patrick, how's it going?
Good morning. It's going well. Busy week.
It has been a busy week in Austin. Let's talk about one of the big stories that's been ongoing, and not only is it national, but it's here in Texas, and that is sanctuary cities and Governor Greg Abbott really going after not only the sheriff there in Travis County, but starting to call out other elected officials if they support sanctuary cities, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we've had multiple developments in this week. This really kind of started as a standoff between him and, as you pointed out, the Travis County Sheriff, Sally Hernandez, over her new policy, which reduces her department's cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Abbott threatened to cut off state funding to the Travis County Sheriff's Department over that new policy. And then he also raised the prospect that officials like her could be removed from office under new sanctuary cities legislation that's expected to make its way through the Texas legislature in the coming weeks. And then just last night we learned that, and it's not entirely clear what the intent of this is, but Abbott's office has sent a letter to all agency heads in Texas asking them to tell the governor's office about how much funds go through them to the Travis County Sheriff's Department. So that suggests to a lot of us watching the process play out here in Austin that Abbott is looking for more ways to apply pressure to Hernandez to try to get her to stop this policy. And it has to be pointed out, Abbott has his big State of the State address next week on Tuesday at the Capitol. This whole fight over sanctuary cities is expected to factor pretty prominently into that speech.
Well, and you look at, I believe it was the sheriff out in Miami-Dade County who last night said, okay, we're going to end this sanctuary city policy. If you're the governor, I mean, I'm sure that gives a little more firepower to Governor Abbott, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, he is, trying to apply maximum pressure to these local officials to get them to back down from these policies that, again, he views as, not adequately complying with or not adequately following the orders of federal immigration officials. And so, he, kind of got in a similar standoff with Dallas County Sheriff Lupe Valdez in 2015 over her department's policy. And it's a little unclear how exactly that ended. But it seems that they came to, I don't know how amicable, but some agreement that she would proceed with a policy that would be favorable, to the governor. So it'll be interesting to see, what exactly happens here in Travis County. Obviously, it gets so much more attention because it's the seat of government in Texas. Austin is a very liberal city filled with a lot of Republican lawmakers and Republican leaders right now. So it's kind of just like the perfect storm for political battle.
And we're visiting with Patrick Svitek, Texas Tribune. When it comes to, and we'll keep this on sanctuary cities for now, and there's another topic that we can, it's kind of the same story almost, but you have sanctuary cities, you have President Trump, who's now talking about sanctuary cities. Is that having any impact as far as lawmakers and what they may or may not do? What I basically mean is, are they going to take a wait and see for what the federal government's going to do before doing something themselves, or how does that work?
I think they're going to be full steam ahead on legislation at the state level. I know that as part of the executive orders that President Trump issued this week, I believe they address the idea of sanctuary cities at the federal level. But I think there are, separate state dollars that are involved in this process that are going to be controlled by the legislators here in Austin. But there's no doubt, at least politically, that they are as emboldened as ever to pursue this legislation because of having, not only a Republican president, but a Republican president who campaigned so vigorously on fighting illegal immigration.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, it was announced the wall is at least going to be looked at. We don't know what the wall's going to look like. We don't know how it's going to be paid for. We don't even know if there's going to be an actual wall through the entire border. What do Republicans in Texas, Republican lawmakers in Texas, what have you been hearing maybe on the statewide, but even on the national level? I know the Tribune had a story out earlier this week saying that none of the congressional delegation has seemed like they're behind a 100% wall.
Yeah, I mean, before the election, as you pointed out, we did a survey of all 38 members of the congressional delegation. Many of those are obviously Republicans, and none of them, gave us a full-throated endorsement of the idea of a wall entirely along the border of at least Texas, Mexico. Since the election, and since this executive order was issued, a lot of them have put out, statements that are generally supportive of the idea of a border wall within the context of at least increasing border security in this country. But, when you try to obviously press those Texas Republicans on the details, especially when it comes to how it's going to be paid for, they get a little more wishy-washy, or they just don't respond at all. It should be noted, and I'm sure you've seen this, there are some Republicans in Texas of some stature who do have more nuanced views on the idea of a border wall. I think Will Hurd, the congressman from the San Antonio area who represents more miles of border than any other congressman in the United States. He's a Republican. He, during his reelection campaign, said a wall, did not make sense from sea to shining sea. He said it was the most expensive and least effective way to do border security. And after Trump's executive order this week, he put out a statement reiterating exactly that. So he's been kind of the lone voice willing to, in my view, oppose this wall. I mean, if you read that statement, he's basically not in favor of it, at least, when you compare that to how other Republicans are approaching this issue.
I know you just got done with a gaggle outside the Capitol.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're going to be writing a story on this, but kind of give because this has some 2018 implications. And there was a lawmaker who he sounded, just in the tweets that I saw from you online, he kind of went after the idea of a wall, right?
Yeah, so the congressman is Beto O'Rourke. He is a Democratic congressman from El Paso. He spoke with reporters outside the Texas Capitol this morning for a decent period of time, actually, about 20, 25 minutes. If I'm recalling the quote correctly, he called the proposed border wall a racist reaction to a racist myth, kind of saying that Trump, has vilified Mexicans and believes that they need to be kept out of, the country and due to this, again, racist myth that they are all bad people or criminals. Again, he pointed to the announcement speech that Trump had. And also he spoke a little about politics, too. He said that given just how these past several days have played out for the Trump administration, that puts Democrats in a pretty strong position in the midterms in 2018 to go out there and make the case against these policies and hopefully have some success at the electoral level. Obviously, O'Rourke has been mentioned and has said that he's very likely to challenge Ted Cruz in 2018. He didn't make any new news about that today. He said he's still very close to making I think he called it a positive decision on that race. So it looks like he's going to be all in at some point.
Patrick, we're about to have to wrap up. Tell folks what they can find, what you're working on for Texas Tribune at texastribune.org.
Yeah, big focus this weekend is the DNC Chairman's Forum in Houston. They have a few of these regional forums across the country before they elect a new chairman in February at their convention. So there's, I think, 11 candidates that are going to be in Houston. I think it's the full field right now. In Houston on Saturday, we'll be keeping an eye on that and how Texas Democrats try to make their influence known in that race. And then next week, as I pointed out, Governor Abbott's going to be giving the State of the State address on Tuesday, and he'll likely lay out some emergency items for legislators to get started on right away. So those are the two big things coming up in my view.
Great. We'll have a lot to talk about next week. Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right, that's Patrick Svitek. Follow him on Twitter, Patrick of Svitek on Twitter, and go online, texastribune.org.